Welcome to your favorite podcast. Okay, I couldn't resist, I have to throw that in there. But seriously, we are diving deep into something truly mind-blowing today, reprogramming your subconscious mind. And the best part is we're going way beyond those basic think positive tips you hear everywhere. Buckle up, because we're about to unlock some serious potential.
What I find fascinating is that all three excerpts you've sent, all titled Reprogramming Your Subconscious Mind, Unlocking Infinite Potential, actually take a scientific approach. We're talking neuroscience, psychology, the real deal.
Okay, so no magic wands or mystical mumbo-jumbo, just straight-up brain science. I like it.
Exactly. And it all starts with understanding just how powerful this hidden part of our minds really is. Dr. Bruce Lipton, a cell biologist who's featured in one of the sources, talks about how the subconscious mind processes a whopping 20 million bits of information per second. Compare that to the measly 40 bits our conscious mind can handle.
Hold on, 20 million versus 40. That's like comparing a supercomputer to a pocket calculator.
It is a mind-boggling difference, and it explains why changing ingrained habits or beliefs can feel like such a struggle. We're basically trying to outsmart a mental giant.
So if our subconscious is this powerful powerhouse running in the background, how much control do we actually have? Is it even possible to reprogram it?
That's where it gets really interesting, because the answer is a resounding yes. Neuroplasticity, which all the sources mention, is the key. It's the brain's amazing ability to rewire itself throughout our lives.
So our brains aren't fixed. They're constantly changing and adapting. That's good news.
It is incredibly empowering. The more we focus our attention on new thoughts and behaviors, the stronger those neural pathways become. It's like carving out new trails in a forest. The more we walk those trails, the more defined they become.
Okay, that's a helpful visual.
Yeah.
But if we're trying to rewrite these deeply ingrained subconscious programs, where do we even begin?
The sources all agree that understanding how our subconscious mind gets programmed in the first place is crucial. There's this window of time from birth to about age 7 where our brains are in a highly suggestible state, absorbing information like sponges.
So that's why those childhood experiences and messages can feel so deeply rooted even if they're not serving us anymore. Makes sense.
Exactly. Think about common limiting beliefs like, I'm not good enough, or money doesn't grow on trees. Often, these stem from things we heard or experienced during those early years, and they can continue to shape our thoughts and actions even as adults.
So we're walking around with these subconscious programs running on autopilot, often based on stuff we learned before we even knew how to tie our shoes. No wonder it can feel like an uphill battle to change.
It can be a challenge, but it's definitely not impossible. And that's what makes this whole concept of subconscious reprogramming so exciting. We have the power to rewrite those outdated programs and create new ones that support our goals and dreams.
Okay, now I'm both fascinated and slightly terrified. But before we go down the rabbit hole of childhood trauma, let's talk about some specific techniques we can use to reprogram these subconscious beliefs.
Right. The sources mention a whole range of techniques, from familiar ones like affirmations and visualizations to more advanced approaches like hypnotherapy, Theta, brainwave meditation, and even a concept called shadow work.
Whoa, hold on. We're going from look in the mirror and tell yourself you're awesome to delving into the depths of our shadow selves. That's a pretty big leap.
It is, and we'll definitely unpack each of those techniques in more detail, but the core idea is the same. To consciously access and reprogram the subconscious mind, we need to use methods that bypass the conscious mind's critical filter.
So it's like we're trying to sneak past the bouncer at the club.
Exactly. And these techniques offer different ways to do that. Let's start with a few familiar ones that everyone's probably heard of: affirmations and visualizations.
Okay, so affirmations, those positive statements we repeat to ourselves, and visualizations, creating vivid mental pictures of what we want. But the forces seem to suggest there's more to it than just saying the words or seeing the images.
Right. It's about engaging with those affirmations and visualizations on a deeper emotional level. One source, quoting Dr. Joe Dispenza, a neuroscientist who focuses on the intersection of neuroscience and personal transformation, stresses the importance of combining affirmations with elevated emotions like gratitude, joy, or excitement. He believes this emotional resonance is what truly supercharges the reprogramming process.
So it's not just about thinking positive thoughts, it's about feeling them deeply.
Exactly. Think about it. When you're truly passionate about something, it's a million times easier to learn and remember information related to it. So if we want to reprogram our subconscious mind, we need to bring that same level of passion and feeling to the table.
Okay, that makes sense. It's like the difference between just reading a recipe and actually cooking the dish. You're not going to get the full effect unless you engage all your senses.
That's a perfect analogy. So with affirmations, instead of just mindlessly repeating a phrase, we need to visualize ourselves living that reality, feeling the emotions that come with it. And with visualizations, we need to make them as vivid and multisensory as possible. Imagine the sights, sounds, smells, even the physical sensations of achieving that goal.
So it's about making it real in our minds, almost like we're already there.
Exactly. The more we can engage our emotions and senses, the more powerful these techniques become. But as you mentioned, there are also more advanced techniques that can take us even deeper.
Right. You mentioned hypnotherapy, which always sounds a bit mysterious to me.
Hypnotherapy is fascinating because it bypasses the conscious mind altogether to access the subconscious directly. It's like having a backdoor pass to the control room of our minds.
Okay, that sounds both intriguing and a little scary. But is there any science to back it up?
Absolutely. One of the sources cites Dr. David Spiegel, a professor at Stanford who's done extensive research on hypnotherapy. His work has shown that it can be incredibly effective for changing deep-rooted patterns and habits. In fact, it's been successfully used to help people quit smoking, overcome fears and phobias, and even reduce chronic pain. And this isn't just anecdotal evidence. There are clinical trials and studies that support these findings.
Wow. So hypnotherapy is not just some woo-woo new age thing. It's actually backed by science. I'm impressed. Tell me more.
Essentially, hypnotherapy involves inducing a trance-like state, which is a natural state that we all experience regularly, like when we're daydreaming or deeply absorbed in a movie. In this state, the conscious mind takes a back seat, and the subconscious becomes more receptive to suggestions.
So it's like slipping past the gatekeeper of our conscious mind and going straight to the source.
Exactly. And while we're on the topic of accessing deeper states of consciousness, another technique mentioned is Theta brainwave meditation.
Theta brainwaves. That sounds a little sci-fi, but I'm intrigued.
It's actually rooted in neuroscience. Theta brainwaves are a specific frequency of brain activity that occurs when we're in a deeply relaxed state, like right before we fall asleep or when we're in deep meditation. And research suggests that the subconscious mind is most receptive to new information when we're in this theta state.
So it's like finding the perfect frequency to tune into for maximum reprogramming power.
That's a great way to put it. And the good news is that there are tools and techniques that can help us access this theta state. One source mentioned using apps and binaural beats, which are special audio recordings that can induce specific brainwave patterns.
Okay, that is seriously cool. It's like we can hack our brainwaves to create the perfect environment for change.
It's not quite as simple as flipping a switch, but the principle is there. And there's also a fascinating technique called neuro-linguistic programming, or NLP, which focuses on the connection between language, thoughts, and behavior.
Right. NLP. It's like the art of using words to rewire our brains. I'm eager to learn more about that.
NLP is all about understanding how language patterns shape our reality. It's based on the idea that by changing the way we communicate with ourselves and others, we can actually change our subconscious programming.
So it's not just about what we say, but how we say it.
Exactly. And NLP has a whole toolbox of techniques for doing just that. One technique they use is called anchoring, which involves creating positive associations with specific words, gestures, or even physical objects. For example, let's say you want to feel more confident. An NLP practitioner might help you choose a specific gesture, like snapping your fingers, and then guide you through a process of associating that gesture with feelings of confidence. So whenever you need a boost of confidence, you could simply snap your fingers and trigger those positive feelings.
That's fascinating. So it's like creating mental shortcuts to access desired emotions. It's almost like Pavlov's dogs, but instead of drooling at the sound of a bell, we're triggering confidence with a snap of our fingers.
It's a similar principle, and it highlights the power of our minds to create associations and patterns. NLP also explores the use of metaphors, reframing techniques, and other linguistic tools to shift our perceptions and beliefs.
Okay, so we've got affirmations, visualizations, hypnotherapy, theta, brainwave meditation, and NLP, all aimed at reprogramming our subconscious minds. That's a lot to take in, but I'm sensing there's even more to this story, right?
You're right, there is. And it gets even more mind-blowing when we start exploring the concept of the shadow self and the potential for quantum connection.
Okay, I'm officially intrigued. Let's dive into those deeper waters next time.
Welcome back to our deep dive into reprogramming your subconscious mind. Last time we explored some powerful techniques for tapping into this hidden realm of our minds. But as we hinted at, there's an even deeper layer to explore the concept of the shadow self.
Okay, shadow self. That sounds a little ominous, but also kind of exciting. What exactly is the shadow self, and what role does it play in all of this?
The shadow self is a term coined by Carl Jung, a famous psychologist, to describe the parts of ourselves that we repress or deny, the darker aspects of our personality that we might not want to acknowledge or confront. Think of it like the hidden side of the moon.
So all those negative thoughts, beliefs, and emotions that we try to push down or pretend don't exist, they're all lurking in our shadow self.
Exactly. And while it might seem counterintuitive to want to explore those negative aspects of ourselves, Jung believed that integrating our shadow is essential for personal growth and wholeness.
Okay, I'm sensing a but coming.
But here's the thing. Those shadow aspects don't just disappear when we ignore them. In fact, they can often exert a powerful influence on our thoughts and behaviors in ways we're not even aware of.
So those limiting beliefs we keep bumping up against, like, I'm not worthy or I'll never succeed, could actually be stemming from our shadow self.
Exactly. And until we acknowledge and integrate those shadow aspects, they can continue to sabotage our efforts to reprogram our subconscious mind for more positive outcomes.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. It's like trying to build a house on a shaky foundation. We need to address those underlying issues before we can create lasting change. So how do we actually go about integrating our shadow self? It sounds a little intimidating, to be honest.
It can be challenging, but it's also incredibly rewarding. One of the sources mentions a process called shadow work, which involves bringing those hidden aspects into the light of conscious awareness. This might involve journaling therapy or even just quiet reflection and self-observation. The key is to approach those shadow aspects with curiosity and compassion rather than judgment or fear.
So instead of running away from those negative parts of ourselves, we need to turn towards them and really examine them.
Exactly. And as we do that, we can start to understand where those limiting beliefs and patterns originated, how they've been impacting our lives, and most importantly, how to release their grip on us.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this all ties together. It's like we're clearing out the mental clutter, those old files that are no longer serving us, so we can create space for new, empowering beliefs and programs.
That's a great analogy. And as we do this work, it's important to remember that the goal isn't to get rid of our shadow altogether. The shadow is a part of us just like any other aspect of our personality. It's about integrating those shadow aspects, finding a balance, and learning to work with them rather than against them.
So it's about embracing our wholeness, both the light and the shadow.
Exactly. And as we do that, we open ourselves up to a greater sense of self-acceptance, compassion, and ultimately freedom. Now, shifting gears a bit, one of the sources also touched on a concept that I find absolutely mind-blowing. The idea that our consciousness can influence reality on a quantum level.
Okay, the quantum connection. This is the part where I feel like I'm about to enter the matrix.
It is pretty mind-bending. Essentially, it's based on the principles of quantum physics, which suggests that the universe is not a fixed, solid reality, but rather a field of infinite possibilities.
So instead of seeing reality as this concrete, predetermined thing, we should see it as more fluid and malleable.
Exactly. And the proponents of the quantum connection believe that our consciousness, specifically our subconscious beliefs, play a role in shaping which of those possibilities become our reality.
So our thoughts are like tiny ripples in this quantum field influencing the outcome of events. I have to admit, it's hard to wrap my head around.
It is a complex concept, and it's certainly not without its skeptics. But there are physicists and neuroscientists who are starting to explore the connection between consciousness and quantum phenomena. One of the sources mentions Dr. Amit Goswami, a quantum physicist who believes that consciousness is fundamental to the creation of reality. He argues that it's our observations and beliefs that collapse the wave function of possibilities into the physical reality we experience.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, our subconscious beliefs are essentially filtering our perception of reality and therefore influencing what we experience.
Exactly. And this is where it gets really interesting, because if we can change those subconscious beliefs, we potentially change our reality as well.
Okay, now we're talking manifestation. But this isn't just about wishing for things and hoping they'll magically appear right.
No, it's not about passive wishing. It's about aligning our thoughts, beliefs, and actions with our desired outcomes. And this is where all the techniques we've been discussing come into play. They help us to shift those subconscious beliefs so that they're in harmony with what we want to create.
So if we're trying to manifest a new job, for example, but our subconscious is full of doubts and fears about our abilities, those beliefs are going to create resistance and make it much harder to achieve that goal.
Exactly. That's why it's so important to address those limiting beliefs and reprogram our subconscious mind for success.
Okay, so it's about creating that internal alignment so that our thoughts and beliefs are supporting our desires, not sabotaging them.
Precisely. And the more we can cultivate that alignment, the more we open ourselves up to the flow of abundance and opportunities that are already present in the quantum field.
I'm starting to see how this all connects. It's like we're tuning our inner radio to the right frequency to pick up the signals we want to receive.
That's a great analogy. And the more we practice these techniques, the more skilled we become at tuning our inner dials to attract the experiences we desire.
This is all so incredibly fascinating, but I'm also wondering about the practical side of things. How do we actually apply all this knowledge to our everyday lives?
Well, that's what we'll be diving into in the next part of our deep dive. We'll be exploring some specific strategies and tips for incorporating these techniques into your daily routine and creating lasting change.
Excellent. I'm ready to take all this amazing information from theory to practice. Welcome back to the deep dive. We've explored the power of the subconscious mind, the science of neuroplasticity, and even touched on the mind-bending concept of quantum connection. But now let's bring it all home and talk about what we can actually do to start reprogramming our minds for the better.
Absolutely. It's one thing to understand the theory, but putting it into practice is where the real magic happens. And the great thing is there are so many simple yet powerful techniques we can incorporate into our daily lives.
Okay, so let's dive into some practical strategies. Where do we begin?
One of the most foundational practices, and one that all the sources emphasize, is the power of gratitude.
Gratitude. We hear about it all the time. But why is it so important for reprogramming the subconscious mind?
Because gratitude is like a mental reset button. It shifts our focus from what we lack to what we already have, and that shift in perspective has a profound impact on our subconscious beliefs.
So instead of dwelling on what's wrong or what we're missing, we're consciously choosing to appreciate the good things in our lives.
Exactly. And that simple act of appreciation can have a ripple effect on our entire mindset. When we're feeling grateful, it's harder to hold on to negative thoughts and beliefs. It's like those dark clouds of negativity start to dissipate, and the sun of positivity can shine through.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
So how do we actually cultivate more gratitude in our lives? Is it as simple as saying thank you more often?
That's a great start, but one of the sources suggested taking it a step further and keeping a gratitude journal.
A gratitude journal. I've heard of that. Is it really that effective?
It can be incredibly powerful. The act of writing down what we're grateful for helps to solidify those thoughts and feelings in our minds. It's like we're creating a written record of all the good things in our lives, which we can then refer back to whenever we need a boost.
So it's not just about feeling grateful in the moment. It's about creating a tangible reminder of all the good things we have to be thankful for.
Exactly. And you don't have to write pages and pages. Even just jotting down 3 to 5 things you're grateful for each day can make a significant difference.
Okay, gratitude journal check. What other practical tips did the sources offer for reprogramming our subconscious minds?
Well, another strategy that came up repeatedly was the importance of surrounding ourselves with positivity.
Ah, yes, the prime your environment tip. One of the excerpts talked about being mindful of the information we consume, the people we spend time with, and even the physical objects we surround ourselves with.
Exactly. It's about creating an external environment that supports and reinforces the internal changes we're trying to make.
So if we're trying to reprogram our minds for success, for example, we might want to surround ourselves with images, quotes, or even people who embody that quality.
Exactly. It's about creating a constant stream of positive input that's aligned with our goals.
It's like we're creating a positive feedback loop. The more positivity we surround ourselves with, the more we reinforce those beliefs in our subconscious mind.
Precisely. And this doesn't have to be complicated or expensive. It could be as simple as putting up a vision board with images that inspire you listening to uplifting music, or even just decluttering your physical space to create a more peaceful and harmonious environment.
Those are all great ideas. I'm starting to see how even small changes in our environment can have a big impact on our mindset.
Absolutely. And speaking of small changes, one of the sources emphasized the power of incremental progress. It's about taking baby steps, setting realistic goals, and celebrating those small victories along the way.
I love that, because I think a lot of us get discouraged when we don't see immediate results. We expect overnight transformations, but lasting change takes time and consistency.
Exactly. It's like training for a marathon. You wouldn't expect to be able to run 26 miles on your first day of training. You start with short runs, gradually increasing your distance and stamina over time.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So when it comes to reprogramming our subconscious minds, it's more about making those small, consistent shifts rather than trying to overhaul everything at once.
Exactly. It's about creating sustainable habits and practices that support our growth and transformation over the long term.
And speaking of sustainable habits, one of the sources highlighted the importance of incorporating these techniques into our daily routines. Because let's be real, it's easy to get caught up in the hustle and bustle of everyday life and forget about our reprogramming goals.
Absolutely. That's why it's so important to make these practices a non-negotiable part of our day.
So how do we actually do that? Do you have any tips for incorporating these techniques into our already busy schedules?
One strategy that I found helpful is to create a morning ritual that includes some of these practices. It could be as simple as spending 5 minutes writing in your gratitude journal, doing a short meditation, or even just listening to a few affirmations while you're getting ready for your day.
I love that idea. It's like setting the tone for the day, priming our minds for positivity and success.
Exactly. And you can also find ways to weave these practices into other parts of your day. For example, you could listen to a guided meditation or binaural beats during your commute, take a few mindful breaths before important meetings, or even just practice gratitude while you're washing the dishes.
I love those ideas. It's about finding those little pockets of time throughout the day and using them intentionally.
Exactly. And the more we can integrate these practices into our daily lives, the more natural and effortless they become. It's like we're slowly but surely rewiring our brains for happiness, success, and fulfillment.
This has been such an insightful and inspiring conversation. I'm feeling so motivated to start putting all of these techniques into practice. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive into the incredible world of the subconscious mind.
It's been a pleasure exploring this fascinating topic with you. And remember, the power to transform your life lies within you. Embrace it, explore it, and watch your reality shift in amazing ways.